it's the first plenary session of the week in the House of Representatives. The day begins with motions of urgent national importance, one of which is on the urgent need to investigate the mass retirement of over 1,000 staff of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The House further concerned that such as a significant decision has socio-economic implications for the affected individual, their dependents, and the broader economy, potentially leading to increased unemployment and public dissatisfaction.
Next, the attention of the House is drawn to the increasing rate of boat mishaps across the country.
Concerned that if nothing is done to improve the safety and emergency response systems, Nigeria will continue to face psychological health trauma, economic losses, and untimely deaths.
In the meantime, the House is urging the President to mandate the Minister of Finance to unfreeze the accounts of the National Social Investment Programs Agency within 72 hours.
The smooth operation of the programs and the fulfillment of the mandate of INSEPA are hindered due to the suspension, freezing of the accounts of the agency and other administrative bottlenecks, which has remained in force even more than 3 months after the President reconstituted the new management of INSEPA.
Order, please.
What seems like an easygoing session suddenly turns rowdy when the spokesperson of the House, while moving for the consideration of a report, brings up the controversial tax reform bills.
I'm from Ekiti State, the very first state in which our National Assembly caucus has unanimously endorsed the tax bills. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of Honorable Boma Goodhead. Mr. Speaker, please, thank you. Order, please. Order.
The rowdy session is sustained despite the intervention of the Speaker and an apology from the Lawmaker.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to withdraw that introduction, sir. Honorable colleagues, I would like to withdraw that introduction and restrict it to the order paper. This has nothing to do with the tax bills.
Please. Honorable Akin Rotimi yields and steps down the consideration of the report.
I seek the leave of the House and Mr. Speaker to step down because the presentation of this report until the next legislative day, Mr. Speaker.
However, the aggrieved lawmakers are not done, as they call for the resignation of the deputy spokesperson of the House over a publication.
I woke up this morning to see an online publication from the deputy spokesman of the House. Read as the content, or the heading read as, the newspaper is Daily Trust, and it reads, those who oppose to tax reform bill now seeking speedy passage. This should be produced, or we are calling for his resigning from the spokesperson or deputy spokesperson of this House.
We will make sure that all your concerns with this publication is well noted by the House and the right action will be taken.
Despite the tense atmosphere, the House passes the North Central Development Commission Establishment Bill and adopts the report of the Conference Committee of the House and the Senate on the amendment of the NDLEA Act to provide for life sentence for punishment of drug peddling, as against the death penalty initially passed by the Senate. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Okay, so to help us unpack some of what was going on there, Honorable Afam again is here with us. He is he's a leader at Anambra and the Labour Party caucuses in that 10th Assembly. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Terry.
First of all, when is the next legislative day?
The next legislative day is today.
Oh, so we expect a follow-up to some of the issues that happened there.
Well, you might not get the kind of tempest you saw yesterday.
It must have calmed down.
Yes.
But straight away, that just speaks to the temperature in the House, because when Honorable Rotimi spoke about his constituency being the first of all of them acceding, at least supporting that tax bill, you could see the reaction. So we know that, I mean, much beyond that time, you're also in touch with your colleagues. What is going on at the moment in terms of the mood now about this tax bill, or the tax bills?
Well, as you rightly noted, our spokesman, who is a perfect gentleman and very good at his job, suddenly touched a raw nerve, innocently so, when he mentioned the tax bills, because certain provisions, or the entire bill that has to do with VAT collection and all of that remains contentious. And so for some people, any suggestion that the bill, is good to go while it has not been discussed. Remember, we've not had second reading of the bill. For such people, is an affront. And if I would lay a background to it.
Yes, please.
Yeah, there is the politics of the entire bill. And you wonder why out of 4 bills, it is only one that is contentious. The late diplomat, Professor George Obiozor, had once famously described Nigeria's federalism as the politics of precarious balancing. So that is what is at play. What is going to come to my state, to my region, and my area? That is simply what is at play. And you know that both at the subnational and national levels, political arbiters have never been neutral. There are several issues that define how they look at issues. It could be ethnic, could be religious, could be political, it could be the whole essence of tribe. So what you see playing out is tied around all of these indices.
So when perhaps we should just break it down for us. If you said it hasn't gone through the second reading, and if they come up with that, it's an affront. So what are the stages before it gets to public hearing? What is the first stage about? What is the second stage about before it gets to public hearing? And after that, what next? So let's start from there.
Well, for me, I didn't say it's an affront. I said some people considered it an affront.
That's what I meant to say, actually.
Which was why you saw the reaction that we got.
Yeah.
But normally, every typical bill comes to the House. If it's an executive bill, the president writes to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Speaker in turn passes it on to the Rules and Business Committee that schedules it, for the first reading. If it's a judicial bill that comes from the Chief Justice, the same process. And so when it comes to first reading, it's just the reading of the long title of the bill. No debates are allowed at that stage. And then subsequently, a second reading is scheduled, where the general principles of the bill is discussed. Members are allowed to discuss for and against the bill, the general principles. And if it passes, when the Speaker puts the question that the bill be read a second time, if the ayes have it, then the bill is committed either to a particular standing committee of the House or several committees if their jurisdictions cut across. And those committees now have the onerous duty of setting the stage for a public hearing where people come, stakeholders in diverse fields would come and speak to the issues about the bill. Whatever issues you have, that is the forum where you can canvass it from the outside. And then the committee now comes up with a report that is presented before the House, and the bill before the third reading will now, a committee of the whole, meaning everybody who is in sitting that day will look at the clauses one by one, each clause. And that is also at the point where amendments take place. If the committee has recommended ABC, a member could get up and canvass why there has to be amendments. Take, for instance, the issue of derivation that we are talking about. A member could say 60% is too much, that it should come down to 30 or 20 as the case may be. And if the majority of members considering it feel that way, then they vote on it, and that amendment stays. At the end of the day, the bill, the Speaker will also put the question, or the chairman, because in consideration, he becomes the chairman of the committee of the whole, will put the question if the bill be read a third time. So once it's read a third time and passed, we'll now wait for the Senate version. And
before both houses have to concur,
yes, they have to concur,
and
the clean copy is transmitted.
I want to be able to talk to you. Well, yesterday we saw a statement from the Minister of Information. I want to be able to get his words. He says, President Tinubu has already directed the Federal Ministry of Justice and relevant officials who worked on the drafts for the task bill to work closely with the National Assembly to ensure all genuine concerns have been addressed before the bills are passed. And we saw that yesterday from the Minister of Information, which led a lot of people to start understanding why some governors were saying this was done hastily. Maybe these were some of the negotiations that should have been done before we get up to the arguments that we're having right now. What are your thoughts on moving this to the National Assembly so quickly, and as many people have complained that the negotiations that should have been done before the process gets to you wasn't done? Do you agree with that assumption?
Well, I cannot speak for the executive, but sitting from where I am, I think that it could have been better handled. If the presidency or the executive comes up with a bill, I should expect, especially one that would have impact, whether positive or negative, on the subnationals, the states, then I should have thought that there has to be elaborate consultations with the governors. From what we hear, there were such conversations. But the governors too, when they take these things back home and their people raise issues with certain aspects. Take, for instance, the president was away when the National Economic Council sat, and the vice president is chair of that committee. The resolution from that meeting was that the bill be stepped down for wider consultations. And whether the president so directed, but his spokespersons pushed out a statement almost immediately to say he wasn't going to take that advice, that the bill would be determined at the National Assembly. So for me, I thought that was a little bit confrontational. It would have been much better if the president came back, invited the governors or NEC, the National Economic Council, what are the issues? At the point that the statement was issued, I don't think that the presidency had digested their reservations, which are some of the things that are coming to light now. So I think that the consultations prior to the bill wasn't engaging and far-reaching enough.
So in the circumstance, what may likely play out? I mean, I'm not asking you to second-guess your colleagues when this comes to the floor for debate. Now, when that happens, what do you think the argument of the people who oppose it might be? Because you say the spokesperson appeared to have touched a raw nerve. Now, chances are that when raw nerves are involved, they may argue ways that people may not expect, as long as majority have it, if they're on that same page. So do you think that at the end of the day, people will say, well, I don't agree with this section of the bill, or some people will just think, look, just forget it, no matter what, whether it's good or not, for the sake of the wider consultation not being done? How do you see that argument playing out when it starts?
Well, I think that it's an ongoing process, and even the news item that Keller alluded to just now is part of it. If the president, I saw that report, even though I haven't quite digested it, if the president has directed that there has to be engagement with the National Assembly, that means that he has also taken judicial notice of the discord and the discordant voices, against certain provisions of the bill. For me, the processes of a bill transmitting into an act is what I just outlined, up to when you get presidential assent, or if it is refused, the House can override, or the National Assembly with 2/3 majority. But we are not there. So essentially, those same, I would have thought that the processes be allowed to be followed. That is the typical...
Which processes? Of legislative processes?
Allowing a second reading, and even going for public hearing. But some people are of the opinion that the bill, which is also lawful, that the bill should be withdrawn and reworked. So there are two ways to it. Go through the processes and achieve amendment, or withdraw the bill and take care of these issues that they're talking about.
I mean, even brings me to that, because that's the conversation going on right now. Okay, so if he's saying that consultations should start with the National Assembly, or continue rather with the National Assembly, let's be able to see how we can work out some of the genuine concerns people have. Does that mean that the bill should be withdrawn, or does it mean that the process should just continue while these consultations are ongoing? Those are some of the debates. So what do you think about that?
No, at this stage, the bill is being discussed in caucuses.
Okay.
I belong to the Labour Party caucus, but on this matter, we all belong to states, belong to zonal caucuses. Yes, and it's not a party issue per se. This is about our country, about the relationship between the federal authorities and the subnationals. And we all come from states, so we have to look at it. How does it affect my state, Anambra, for instance? If there are positives in it for Anambra, I'm likely to support the bill. If there are positives for the bill for the Southeast, I'm likely to support the bill. But while I'm at it, I'm also going to look out for my brothers across the aisle. How is it going to affect them? Would it put them in a more precarious state? Are there things to be done to help, the situation? So those are the conversations going on. All of last week, this week, conversations are going on in caucuses.
Well, Lagos has been one of those states accused of saying that they're going to get
in support of this bill.
So, Ayo, I'm sure maybe you'll read the room and see if it's the same feel and vibe they're getting there. Ayo, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. One question that I would like to ask, and I'm glad that we're talking about the politics of this process and not just the whatever it is, the values and all of that of the law itself. So, Honorable, the question that I would like to ask you is, exactly what do you think the issues are? You've talked about the fact that there were no consultations, so to speak. However, we know that the national anthem law was passed in record time. So it is not that this bill cannot be passed in quick succession. So for you, what are the issues? So when we said that there were no consultations, or the consultations have not been made, how much consultation was made to pass the national anthem law? So, and that's just one of several examples like that in this republic. So what exactly for you, Honorable, are the issues?
Okay, thank you so much. I didn't say that consultations were not made. I only pointed to the fact that I'm using empirical evidence, as even the president has directed today, to say that maybe the consultations were not far-reaching enough. And I cited an instance where the National Economic Council had taken a position. I thought there would have been further consultations with that august body. Having said that, you cannot equate the national anthem bill with a bill that touches on the entire life of the country. The economy is what drives the country. And so there are two different scenarios. For some members, they couldn't care less whether you sing the old or the new national anthem. And so you are not likely to see a lot of people, take issues with that. But talking about the politics surrounding this bill, if you check, the North, for instance, claim that there are major stakeholders in the Tinubu presidency. Don't forget that the president got to power with 36.6% of the votes of about 24 million votes of Nigerians who voted in that presidential elections. And the North has claimed, even Governor Zulu mentioned the other day, that the North produced 62% of that. Even beyond that, they also feel that they were the ones who insisted that power should go back to the South. And then, even when the Muslim ticket came about, they gave their support. So if they see a bill like this that they feel was going to change them in some way, they are likely to raise, some alarm, which is what they are doing. But the presidency, on the other hand, feels that if the governors, for instance, were to take a major decision through a bill in the state houses of assembly, that of course they will sit with the state assembly and even pass the law before the people know. It happened under former President Buhari, when he insisted that governors cannot appoint their commissioners, and at the federal level, they want to insist to nominate ministers. And so I think that President Tinubu has borrowed from that to want to say that at the federal level, he is in charge. And so these are federal agencies we are talking about, not state agencies. But on the flip side, the North has also looked at the fact that several far-reaching decisions have been taken through the judiciary. The lottery and gaming law that makes it residual, it goes to the state. Only 2 weeks ago, I think lottery, the lottery, the Supreme Court decision that now puts the earnings and control of lotteries in the states. And then you also have the local government autonomy landmark judgment. All these, the governors, I suspect, realize that they will be losing funds in this area. So when you bring a tax reform bill, no matter how good it is, they want to look deeply into some of the details of that law and see that they are not further deprived of federal funding.
Well, Honorable, part of the issues that, we've listened to all shades of opinions. Even Channels Television organized a town hall on this tax reform bills. And to anyone who is listening, as far as anyone is concerned, it should be something that especially the governors themselves should open their hands, their arms, and welcome wholeheartedly. Because a good number of stuff, according to all of the information that is out there, is going more to the states and depriving the federal government, essentially saying that this whole revenue sharing thing, fiscal federalism we're talking about, is coming closer home. That's the reason I asked what the issues are. Is it more political than it concerns the bill itself? Because if it is about the values that will go to the states, unless I'm missing something or people are missing something, it's more in the favor of the states. And 19 states, I understand, are in the north. So that's the reason I asked that question, not that I didn't hear what you said earlier. So is it a problem of, okay, the federal government didn't consult us enough, or what exactly is there? Because if these governors leave office, there's a likelihood that they will regret not supporting this bill now.
Well, I think I'm here to discuss the politics around it. It has nothing to do with whether I support. For me, I'm at home with the provisions of the tax law. I don't think that, I think it's a futuristic law that will help us in the long run. But the politics of it remains that some parts of the North feel that they are not economically endowed enough to stand on their own. And they quickly cite even the United States of America, where we run to pick examples about our federalism. There are also states that are considered the poorer states. Talk of Alabama, New Mexico, Mississippi, and they get a plethora of federal support and funding in healthcare, infrastructure, and all of that. In fact, Mississippi at a point have 40% of their annual budget funded from the center. And so some of the issues that I've heard, surrounding this whole issue is that some federal institutions would, of course, have to go. How do you justify a situation where, for instance, Ted Fund, that is an interventionist agency, now gets much more money than the Federal Ministry of Education that is supposed to be overseeing Ted Fund? But some people also are benefiting from Ted Fund, that it will help them put structures in universities, across the country. So these are arguments that have been canvassed behind closed doors. Not many people are likely to come out and tell you that these are the issues. But if you go beyond the bill, it is the politics behind the bill that is causing all this brouhaha. And I'd also mention that I think that the arguments around the bill was left to the people outside of the assembly and outside the political players. So immediately, even without reading the bill, a lot of people denounced it. As far as they were concerned, President Tinubu was going to impose further hardship on the people, because once you hear tax, what comes to mind is digging more holes in your pocket. And so the people on the outside appropriated the discourse and started threatening their representatives. So would you wonder, for instance, why a presiding officer will have a wedding that has been scheduled for Kanu relocated to Abuja? So it's not as easy as we think.
It appears that there may be a catch-22 situation here, because at the end of the day, if this matter becomes a legal case and it ends up residual, they will still end up losing, because whatever any state is getting, they will eventually keep. So, but for this, and in conclusion, now, on this last point which you made, if I could just stretch that a little bit, how do you see this playing off? If the members, or if there are people back home feel this is our position, and the members in the assembly feel, well, that position is uninformed, and as a member of the House, if I see the bill and I feel, well, the rightful position is actually to support the bill, while, quote unquote, my people oppose the bill, as a politician, perhaps if you could use yourself as an example, would you rather stick with the right thing, which may oppose the views of your people, or would you say, no, I'll just have to go with what my people say, whether I agree with the right thing or not?
Well, it is said that all politics is local. So you didn't bring yourself to Abuja. People, voted for you, elected you to just be their representative, their spokesman. And so you must also factor in their sensitivities in all matters, and especially in a matter like this. But I think that what should happen, and what is already happening, is that every legislation and politics generally is about negotiations. Okay. So if they are able to negotiate and get what they think is a better deal for their people, I think they will now have the leverage to go back and explain to them, and that's settles it.
All right, that settles it for us as well on this segment. Thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning. Honorable Afam is a member of the Victor Afam is a member of Ogbaru Federal Constituency. He is of the Labour Party caucus in the 10th Assembly. Well, that wraps up the program today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Osok. Goodbye.
Thank you very much for being with us. I'm Kayla Magwa.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.